Hello, Scorpio, and welcome to the story of I Am, your 2020 mid-year reading from Planet Waves. My name is Eric Francis, here to tell you a little bit about your astrology for the coming few months leading up until the end of the year. A very exciting time for you in ways you might not be thinking, but the thing that stands out, at least to me, I'm not sure if it would to other astrologers, is the extent to which you have become a kind of a magnet for people. You are the the center of a coalition, or certainly you can be that way. And one of the effects that this has had has been to rearrange something about your concept of who you were previous to that, which probably didn't involve being the center of a coalition. In some way, it probably involved being something like the center of a relationship, and also a person whose work is very, very important to you. So before I get into the current transits and Mars retrograde, I want to point out a fact of your solar chart that I have pointed out a few times before. You never know who's heard something in the past, and one of the things I find that it really helps to have things explained several times. I know this as someone who has to constantly be encountering new material, is that once is not enough. Maybe it'll take like 10 or 15 times. So here may be the first, or it may be the 15th, but here's what. This is the Scorpio solar chart. These are the current positions of a wide diversity of planets that I use. Many planets that are not acknowledged by most astrologers, but they are points that I have put in to so many charts that I don't even need to look them up. I just put them in. I know where they are. And in the Scorpio solar chart, which we can tell what it is because it's Scorpio on the first house, so that means Scorpio and Scorpio rising. No matter what degree rising you are, let's just count the whole of Scorpio as your first house. That when we count houses, we get to Aries in house number 6. And it is my observation that wherever Aries is in a chart is a particularly important place in the chart for the theme of where you seek your being in the world, where it feels the best to be you, where you seek growth, and where you seek experience, and ultimately where you seek the direct knowledge of learning who and what you are on the planet. And to have Aries on the 6th house means that you will tend to place a very strong emphasis on the work that you do. The first thing that we contact in the 6th house is the work that we offer and the service that we offer. And this can't be something that you're faking. If you haven't figured that out yet, whatever it is that you do, whatever style of work that you want, whatever setting that you choose to work in, you have to be completely sincere in what you're doing, because no matter what it is, you're going to bring your whole self into that thing. You're going to bring the real you, the whole you, and if you are in some way squashed, if you are in some way limited, if you cannot say the things that you say and be the person that you are, and most important, if you cannot bring your talent to bear on the work that you do, you are very unlikely to be happy. You're not going to want to compromise. You're not, you're a very interesting version of an alpha person. You don't always like that. In some ways, it's not always your thing to be a top, but at work, you have to be the alpha person. You have to have some authority, and you have to be able to be real and be you. And if we end this video now at exactly 5 minutes, and you get nothing else from it, remember that. All right. So then the 6th we don't really need this right this second, but I'm just going to do it again, just so you get a vision in your mind of where House 6 is, right below the western horizon, has a second very important meaning, and that is your well-being, and usually that translates to health. In the order of deduction of what the sixth house is about, the idea of service comes first because the sixth is the house of military service. However, through a number of associations, we go from service to other service in the military to other certain kinds of service, and there ends up there being a theme of health and well-being. I've not quite been able to crack the connection, but one of the connections may be that if it's the military people tend to get injured in the line of duty, and then they have to be taken care of in some way, and that may be the way that we get a health association. I need to make a note to myself to ask Rob Hand. That he's the person who will know that and come up with at least a plausible Sagittarian theory. But in any event, the sixth is about your health. And with Chiron there, it doesn't look like Chiron because I kind of made it Pholus first, but it's Chiron, a little K there. There is a need for you to focus on your health and your well-being. And to focus on your health and well-being is a primary vocation of your life. And this also means aligning yourself with where health and well-being align with work, and such that your work is not taking a toll on you in any way that you are not happy with, or that is slowing you down in some way, or damaging your health, or in some way detrimental to your health. So be mindful of that, particularly now that Chiron is going to be in your sixth house for another 6 years, and you're about to embark on what I think of as being kind of a boot camp for Mars in Aries, Chiron in Aries, which is Mars retrograde in Aries, doing something that has not done in a very long time. The last time Mars was retrograde in Aries was in 1988. And that's 32 years ago, and this has to do with the tendency of Mars to be retrograde at the exact opposite side of the zodiac of Aries, on the Leo, Virgo, Libra side of the zodiac, and so when a planet goes retrograde in a place that it hasn't gone retrograde for a long time, there's going to be some kind of a new experience that emerges. There's going to be something potentially uncovered from the past. If you've never experienced this, if you're only age 31 or younger and you've never experienced this, then you're likely to have an experience that you never had. If you are 32 or older, I mean, if you were 1 year old, it's unlikely that you have any real recollection, but you might want to check in with whatever age you are, assuming you were born before 1988, figure out what 1988 was about for you, and while the parallel will not be exact, there will be important instructional information that will help you make sense of this time in your life now, and possibly see some of the benefits and the potential that you have that you might be overlooking. Okay, so I could take this one of several ways right now. Let's keep talking about the retrograde of Mars and pull that together, and then we'll go from a kind of specific of that to a more general state of your being, and two themes I want to focus on are leadership in the community, and personal leadership, including leadership of family, and possibly in your place of work as well. But let's start with the manner of Mars retrograde in your sixth house and what that might be about. So here's Mars. It's going to be retrograde in approximately 13 degrees of the zodiac. It entered here. It entered it entered Aries on July 1st, I believe. And so when an inner planet is retrograde, I count the entire time that it's in the sign as part of the retrograde. Since retrograde inner planets only happen so often, it's not that often that they happen at all, only every 2 years. Sometimes they stay in one sign, sometimes they jump one sign. But in this case of when it is in one sign, I will count the entire time that it's in that sign as being part of the retrograde process and a thing to a time metric. And so take this whole experience basically being the entire last 6 months of 2020, which the first 6 months of 2020 were certainly interesting, and then the last 6 months of 2020 are going to be even more interesting in certain ways. And I'm thinking that you're a very sixth sensey type of person. You may be able to see through some of the lies we're being told, clear through to the agenda that is operating. So if not, keep your antennas on, because you need to know about this on every level that is happening, partly due to your responsibility in a leadership role. And your responsibility in a leadership role means you must know exactly what is happening in your environment. You cannot be working with partial information. There's no deciding that you don't want to read something because you don't know what it's about. The sixth house is a certain type of environmental house that really is one of the most here and now houses that has some of the most direct impact on a person. And given that what is happening now is being described as a military action, a war, and you have a lot of focus on your sixth house, one way or the other, you're going to be involved in this war, and you want to know that. And given that the house 6 is about well-being, you want to get yourself to the point where you have absolutely no questions about your well-being, no questions about whether your health is in any way going to be compromised. There's only a very slim chance of that, but with Mars retrograde in the 6th, you just want to make sure that you are on top of your game of self-care. So, the 6th, we've gone over a few themes of the 6th. Work and well-being are the two most important ones, all of which come back to service, whether service performed to you, performed by you, collaborated on, and where you must be yourself. Mars in the 6th is making a conjunction to Eris, long conjunction, month or more long, and that is saying, like, get a grip on who you are. There is a general theme of collect yourself from the internet and reassemble your pieces back into your actual living space and your physical body and your physical reality. Bottom line of anything going on in Aries right now, because there's been so much damage done and so much health impact that we're not accounting for, so much health impact of the weirdness of projecting our souls and our being, depending on how intently you do so, into the digital realm. So collect yourself back, be in your physical body, collect your feelings, conduct your business in person as much as possible. Then a second place is involved. I've highlighted the retrograde here, and I've also highlighted the retrograde here because it is equally impactful in the sign Capricorn. The sign Capricorn involves your local community. It's your local environment for you. It's house number 3, so it's the house of brethren and of neighbors and of communication, all of which are very closely related. So it's like in the old days, your brothers and your sisters usually lived pretty close to you. In many agrarian communities, there was kind of a family compound, almost like a little village that the family occupied, and there would be a house for one sib and a house for another sib, and maybe the parents had their own place, but everything was kind of facing inward, and it was a little compound. And rich people still live this way. Poor people used to live this way. And this is where there's been the scene of much activity going back by some measures to 2008, and going back by some measures to 2017. And so with Mars retrograde in this degree range, it's also going to be retrograde in this degree range and make a series of retrograde square aspects to Jupiter, Pluto, and Saturn. And this is likely to be stirring up activity in your local community and in your circle of immediate people whom you might hold as the closest neighbors or brothers and sisters. And you, I think, will want to observe this for a while before you take any action, and notice what the movement of Mars is doing here, and what subject matter it brings up from the past. And it may be bringing up subject matter from the very distant past. That is very much a possibility that it is doing that. And the reason I say this is because the third house has an interesting association with the past, and the past in the style of the third house, the very distant past, is a childhood element to many different houses that's not necessarily evident in the adult pattern of those houses. The childhood pattern of those houses, of the third house, is what you encountered before you could walk. What you bumped into when you were crawling. This is from the master astrologer, centaur specialist, psychological astrologer, and though she doesn't throw around the PhD, Melanie Reinhardt, said, look at, it's the crawling time. So go back to crawling time, pre-toddler. We're really talking about ages like 6 months to 2.5, or 6 months to 2 years. I'm not sure quite when kids get up and start ambulating on their own. But think back to that time, and think back to your emotional responses and what they would seem like if you were not in a position to basically get up and walk away, or to get up and walk to a neighbor's house. And time when you were pre-verbal, you could not necessarily express your issues. So all of that is stuff that's like emerging from your past that may relate to what you're going through, and that may teach you something about not only the state of your work, but also the state of your well-being. There may be unresolved subject matter with family members. There may be unresolved health subject matter with family members, where you are going to be kind of, in a sense, privy to kind of ancestral material that relates to their state of health and your state of health. And I suggest you focus this. And while we're on the subject of state of health related to ancestral, you may check into this concept that the right food for you to eat is the food that your ancestors ate. Prepare the way that your ancestors prepared it. If you are Greek, you should be eating a lot of vegetables and meat. Unless you have some real thing about being a vegetarian or a vegan, you want to eat in the fashion of your ancestors for the maximum well-being, and you can figure out the way to fit that within your diet. But you do not want to veer too far from this and like invent whole new things and fads and have meals coming in frozen. So there's something of a reclaiming of the past and reclaiming of the tricks of well-being, the things that were known by those people about how to stay well. Go back to your great-grandparents' era. They did not have the medications that we have. They did not have the conveniences that we had. Often they did not have the sanitation that we had, benefits like internal plumbing. Your great-grandparents definitely lived through a time when they did not have, assuming you're older than 30 or something, probably are. The great-grandparents may have lived with either cold water flats or without any indoor plumbing at all. And they managed to do a pretty good job of staying well. And I would strongly suggest figuring out how exactly that that they did that. Okay, back after a little light adjustment. Just took a few layers off the window, catching the last beautiful rays of a warm summer day here in upstate New York, and have this fantastic golden light coming in. So my concept of this Mars retrograde is it is preparation for the next stage. I tend to work in terms of overlapping developmental stages in astrology, in kind of mini eras of one season leading to the next, 1 year leading to the next, one stage of astrology leading to the next, and we are very much in one of those right now. And the retrograde of Mars in Aries, to me, seems about preparation mainly for two things. One is that it's preparation for individuating sufficiently to have confidence, to be able to call yourself fully present and to be real at all times. For you, this is about taking mastery over your work and your well-being. It's about taking control of your life in the two most important ways, and having the confidence to really to be solid in your relationships, and also to not be submissive to your relationships in any way that you don't want to be submissive to your relationships. The second thing is that it's preparation for leadership, and this is in particular for you. There's a few ways to turn this crystal, but for you, there's a very important matter of preparation for leadership, and I say this because the theme of leadership is all over your chart, and Mars retrograde is preparation. And therefore, I'm putting the two together and coming out with a concept of preparation for leadership, which I think you might agree with if you see it. And one of the most obvious ways that you do your leadership is that you set an example for the right way to work. You set an example as someone who is self-possessed and committed to your work in a way that for many people, particularly younger people, there's incredible distortion and confusion over right now. In a sense, for you, there is no such thing as going to work. There's simply what you do in life, and that's it. And so even if work closes, you might work at Jimmy Choo in Las Vegas, and the store closes at 9:00, and maybe you can stay an extra hour and you let yourself out. You're still thinking about your work all the time. There's no you do better without a separation between yourself and your work, and I think you recognize that the separation between you and your work is between oneself and one's work is artificial and not particularly helpful, and it's very crucial and positive of an influence for you to set this example for the world, to show people that what you do is what you do, and who you are is who you are, and that's all there is to it. Now, from that, you may need to set aside time for other interests. You may need to make space for certain facets of yourself that don't blend well with the kind of work that you do. You would do well in a career that calls you to have the commitment of a doctor who's available all the time, but even a doctor or a midwife or something. But even they have their place where they get their respite, and they know how to do that. They've learned how to do that, and have at least, if not compartmentalized their life, created a situation where they can sort of like step out of the way, step into the wings, and like, or be in their dressing room, till they're called upon to be on stage. So that's a crucial part of the leadership, is the leadership by example of commitment. And I mean, even if I said that 14 times, how necessary that is now, how confused people are about the concept of commitment. How there is all of this imaginary bullshit about what it means to have an impact or not have an impact, what it means to be part of something. There is, you will never, hardly ever hear me use the word egotism in that. And you possess a skill of selflessness. I have a lot of astrology books there. Other rooms, there's even more. Those are the ones I refer to regularly. You will probably not see that in many sign descriptions of Scorpio. You'll see a lot of other things, but I think that there is a Piscean side to Scorpio that is often unacknowledged and that may be underexpressed. And that Piscean side is a commitment to service, and it's a commitment to being submissive to the service that you're performing. This is now showing up in a very big way in your chart. What is also showing up is that you are a gathering point for people. The gathering point shows itself three major ways, and then if we look, we can find other ways. So I'm going to just purely for fun, and because it might be interesting, I want to go over the ways that your chart is describing you as a personal gathering point, and it's doing so in this time where there is this pernicious agenda to shove people apart from each other, and to take the entire theme of gathering being from people getting together and drumming and eating food and doing things and talking and having meetings and like getting together and getting to know one another, to shoving the whole reality up onto Zoom, onto the astral plane. This is bad news. You are unlikely to fall for it. To the extent that you are, I would propose you unfall for it. If you don't think I'm a complete idiot, consider this idea that in-person is crucial and vital right now, and that in-person is a very important part of your leadership calling. So let me describe, and look, you could interpret all of these to be something that was like, oh, well, that could also happen on Zoom. I don't think so. I don't think so because Mars is involved, and Mars represents Mars in Aries retrograde, cleaning the clock of Eris, which is not that easy and does not happen very often, and nothing like it has happened since 1988. And I haven't checked to see if the Mars retrograde of 1988 made a series of conjunctions to Eris. I kind of have a feeling that it did not make a series of conjunctions. I think it happened in the early part of Mars, and Eris was in the middle part, but I will verify that. And I can't pause the video, or I would pause it, but this program does not allow you to pause. This is the last project we're doing on it. But the Mars quality here is incarnate, physicality, incarnate. Be your real physical person. You crave this, you need this, and even though other things may count and qualify at a certain point, they are worth much more with physical anchoring. One meeting means 1,000 times more than no meetings. Okay, here's the gathering point. Solar chart of Scorpio. Once again, this is an interesting color scheme going on here. Okay, these automatic cameras are so bizarre. Okay, the gathering point of Scorpio. The solar chart for Scorpio starts with Scorpio on the first house. So this is the house of who and what you are. It is the house of I am. It is the house of your essential fundamental being, your existence, your incarnation in the world. And you have here this interesting thing called a trans-Neptunian point, a planet without a body, a very interesting thing that most astrologers are completely clueless exists, or if they know it, they don't trust it enough to work with it. The reason I work with the trans-Neptunian objects is when I was a young guy, 31 or 30 years old, and I was studying astrology, one of the teachers I had said, pay attention to them. But they show up for the really big things. So they may not be the thing that's active all the time, but when important stuff is happening, really important global stuff is happening, that's when you look to the TNPs. They're called the Uranians or the trans-Neptunian points. And they're calculated points. They're planets without bodies. And there are two newly arrived in Scorpio for you. Some of them take like 100 years to go through a sign, or 75 years to go through a sign. It's nuts. And so when they change signs, that's important. And these two have basically been in Libra all of our lives, and now suddenly they're showing up in Scorpio. And they have arrived. They're going to be here for the foreseeable future, and they're in a conjunction. Apollon is the TNP about the gathering, and when it's in your house, in your sign, that makes you the point of the gathering. It is attended by Vulcanus, which is just pure raw power. It is like spiritual Mars. It is like spiritual Mars juiced up in a big way. So this is to say, juiced up gathering involving you and around you. That's thing one. Thing two is that in 2018 and 2019, Uranus entered your opposite sign. Uranus is the disruptor. You have Taurus as your opposite sign. You depend upon relationships being solid, stable, and fully present. This messed with that. It messed with it because it is a rebellious influence. It is a destabilizing and disruptive influence. It is the very sigil of being in a monogamous relationship, and your partner just announces one day they want to be polyamorous. They don't necessarily want to not be your partner, but they just say one day, well, it's time for me to see other people. That would not necessarily make you a very happy camper, but it may not be literally what happened, but it's a metaphor for what happened and what is happening. So it puts you in a world where there are other people, not just one person. And in areas of life where you would think there would be only one person, suddenly there's more than one person. And the way this functions is as a point of gathering, as a point of communion. If not complete disruption, then it's a point of like, okay, let's go with this and see who shows up to this party. And I would implore you to be open-minded about this, because incredible things can happen when you're open-minded and you just roll with it, and maybe you find out, this is a great way to do things. This is a different way to do things than other than the one that I had planned, but there's things here that might work for me. Okay, so that's point two, potential point of irritation and potential point of disruption, but nonetheless a point of gathering. Finally, all of this mishigas going on in Capricorn, which has, by the way, led to this complete fucking shit show of 2020, not merely COVID-19. There are astrologers out there who kind of don't really have a clue, and they're calling it the COVID alignment, which is sort of what it is. And if you're wearing blinders, what it really is the global transformation world management team acting out its wet dream fantasies on the human race is about to dissipate. It's about to kind of go its own way. And it's going to go its own way because Saturn and Jupiter are only spending a limited amount of time in Capricorn, enough to play havoc on the world, but nonetheless a limited amount of time. And then they are going to go into Aquarius, and Aquarius is the sign of groups. And it's the sign of your fourth house. It's the sign of where you seek your security. The fourth house is a crucial house because it's the house where you seek your stability, your security, your need for belonging. It's the house of question of how many locks do you have on your door? What do you think it is that protects you? And for you, that's a being invested and involved in a group, and the first group is the family. And so all groups have some modeling after the family until you begin to repattern your limbic programming that you had as a young helpless member of your family, crawling around on the floor, banging into things with your forehead and banging into your relatives' feet on the floor, and it's like large things like half the size of you, um, and this repatterning is happening right now, and it's been happening for a while. Certainly, it's been happening going back to the first ingress of Chiron into Aries, and that's been concurrent over the past 3 years, with Saturn making its way back and forth every year, going retrograde back and forth across Saturn making its way back and forth across Capricorn for 3 years. This is a very important transit because Saturn rules Capricorn. It's the night ruler of Capricorn. It's kind of Capricorn's less influential sign, but it's also been about preparation and clearing space. And the preparation and clearing space that's been happening is all about the moment forthcoming when Jupiter and Saturn enter your fourth house, and you become the central focal point of your group reality, which also translates, and this is very important, to your family reality, which expands into various forms of surrogate family and substitute family, but nonetheless your family reality, and you are about to become the matriarch or patriarch of your family de facto, because you are the point of gathering. The person whose home everyone goes to on the holidays is the matriarch or the patriarch. If you do not have a family of origin to whom this applies, I strongly suggest that you be bold and experimental about family of choice. We now live in a time where family of choice is a very important thing. Family of origin has been scrambled in many different ways, and yet it would be very wise of you to align yourself with the task of at least gathering the remnants of, even if it's a thing of the past, the remnants of your family of choice, and gathering that together, family of origin, and then also working on the family of choice thing. Thanksgiving is coming up. I know here in the East, everyone immediately flocks to their family. On the West Coast, people tend to have Friendsgiving celebrations. You might ask yourself what to do with that time, and particularly around the holiday time, and how you're going to define the idea of your family. But remember that even if you don't see yourself this way, people see you as a central figure in your family. And then this works one other way, and it's very interesting the way that it's doing so. At the moment, and we'll end up on this rather beautiful note, the 10th house is the house of who you are as an exemplar. It is said to be the house of fame, though I have actually seen very few famous people who have a strong 10th house. One of the things the 10th house does definitely do is give you access to people who are famous, access to people who are powerful. And right now you have a rather beautiful example of a 10th house, in that there's a conjunction going on between Varuna, a very slow moving point discovered in 2000, and Vesta, a quicker moving point, but nonetheless a monumentally important planet for those who are involved in any type of leadership by example role, and also responsibility. One of the things that the 10th bestows is responsibility, and to have Vesta in the 10th in your house of responsibility is to stabilize your responsibility there, and to, in a sense, consecrate your commitment. And the 10th is also a very powerful house of family. It is not often seen that way. It's more often the fourth. But the 10th house is a very natural place to look for information about family, and then also the way that extends into the world of how your concept of family expands itself into other forms of leadership. And this house is just absolutely beautifully aspected right now. And so looked at in every way, we're looking up to you. You're it. You're the one who's going to help us find the way to the future. And you're going to help us find the way to the future by initially by showing us what it's like to be committed to your work and what it's like to be fully present for who you are in your work. And you remember that you never check out of being alive. You never punch out of life. You never not the person that you are. You are you. Very happy to have you as you. All right. Don't forget to share this with somebody you think might value it. If anybody needs to be convinced that you are looking up to you, show them this, and check your rising sign, please, if you have access to it. And you'll hear from me next with the Scorpio birthday reading. I'm going to complete the respect readings begun at the beginning of the year, and then I'll be back with a 2021 annual edition. On that note, thank you for your trust. Thank you for your business, and bye for now.